Stay tuned for updated real news.
Hello, Anka Daily News viewers. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As Anka Daily News team, we continue to share our report on Russia-Ukraine war with you. We will soon share with you a very interesting development from behind the front line. We often talk about the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war on the Russian people. The situation of the Russian people is quite deplorable. They can neither support their own country nor stand against it. But sometimes the situation is very difficult and deplorable again. At least this is the case for the Russian soldiers. Recently, an unbelievable thing happened in Russia. We have covered similar developments in many of our previous reports. From time to time, Russian soldiers are removed from the front line under various pretexts. But the most well-known excuse is heavy wounds. However, recently, a group of Russian Special Forces personnel allegedly left the front line and returned to Russian territory despite no injuries. However, this brought a great disaster for them. So, what was this disaster? Let's take a look at the developments together. As you already know, before moving on to our report, I should make a small reminder. As Anka Daily News team, we strive to bring you the latest developments in Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our daily reports and explanations. You know that I also read all of your comments on our videos. Please continue to share your ideas about our content in the comments and tell us in the comments what content you would like to see on Anka Daily News channel. Let's start if you are ready. Anka Daily News reports. The struggle between Russia and Ukraine continues in full intensity on the front line. Russian soldiers are similarly distressed because the situation on the front line is hell for them, and it should be noted here. Of course, the Russian armed forces are stronger and fitter than the Ukrainian armed forces, or rather, they were. But this perception has been completely destroyed. This has put the Ukrainian armed forces in an even more advantageous position in terms of moral and motivation of the front line. The fact that this situation has been going on for more than 2 years has had a very negative impact on the psychology of the Russian armed forces. Many Russian soldiers on the front line faced psychological problems and frustration. Therefore, the Russian soldiers found ways to leave the front line. Some of them deserted, some responded positively to the Ukrainian armed forces' calls to surrender. Others ended the situation by taking their own lives. However, these were not always legitimate ways, because there was no way for the Russian soldiers to legitimately leave the front line. Russian soldiers were obligated to fight on no matter what. Otherwise, they were offered only one condition: to die, and this was already an option for the Russian soldiers faced on the front line. This situation, it made more sense for the Russian soldiers to find a way to legitimize their departure from the front line. Likewise, in recent days, 2 Russian Special Forces soldiers on the Russian armed forces somehow managed to make themselves look wounded and get away from the front line. However, this was not the case in reality. Both soldiers were quite healthy, but the soldiers who wanted to get out of this bind had chosen such a method, and this method cost them their lives. In recent days, an incredible news echoed on the Russian soil. 2 Russian soldiers of the Russian armed forces were executed. Both of them had just returned from Ukraine, and the news of the first list soldiers echoed first. According to the regional sources, the soldiers had not been back from the front line for a long time, and he was telling people in the neighborhood that he was wounded and had left the war. However, people in the neighborhood did not believe that he was wounded, at least not badly enough to leave the war. Some of them, especially the pro-war ones, even insulted him. So according to local sources, the situation was similar for the other Russian soldiers, and this Russian soldier was also considered strange by people in the neighborhood, and they thought that he was in no condition to leave the war. Both soldiers were executed very soon after leaving the front line. A week apart, both were executed in the same way. Both soldiers had an axe in their backs, and the soldiers collapsed from the blow that they had received. They probably bled to death. Local sources report that they were executed in the backyard of their homes, and there were even notes attached to their lifeless bodies that read, "Thank you for special operations." This caused a great outrage in the Russian Federation. The execution of 2 Special Forces members in this way was quite remarkable. Based on the processes of the 2 soldiers leaving the front line, everyone has started to investigate the reasons for this incident, and there are 3 theories put forward so far. According to the first theory, these Russian soldiers were executed by the Russian intelligence, and this is a possible theory. However, it is important to take this into account. Russian intelligence has failed in many areas, so how accurate would it be to expect them to succeed in such a situation? Experts also find it unlikely that the Russian intelligence has succeeded in this matter as well. The other possibility is an assassination carried out by the Ukrainian intelligence. This is more likely than the other theory. Ukrainian intelligence has carried out similar operations and assassinations inside the Russian territory many times before. From this point of view, the likelihood of the similar situation is quite high, and this is even more likely when we take into account the operations carried out by the Ukrainian military intelligence, both on the front line and behind the front lines so far. None of the political or military figures who fled or harmed Ukraine are safe. The other theory is possibly of an assassination carried out by the extreme Russian nationalists. As it is known, extreme Russian nationalists are known for their pro-war attitude, and from this group's point of view, the presence of the Russian army in Ukraine is necessary and legitimate. For this reason, extreme Russian nationalists believe that the Russian soldiers should continue to fight no matter what the conditions are. Although there are the Russian nationalists who have recently come to different conclusions, but the predominant view is that the war must continue. However, there is still a possibility that the Russian nationalists may have assassinated these soldiers. Local sources also report that the two Russian soldiers have been under close surveillance by extreme Russian nationalist groups for some time. Regardless of who did it, the execution of the Russian soldiers is a remarkable event. The fact that these soldiers were members of the Russian special forces makes it even more serious. According to even theory, there is a truth. Russian soldiers are cornered and they don't have many points of escape. This situation is deeply shaking the entire front line, and this makes the Ukrainian armed forces' job much easier. But now it's your turn. What do you think? Who do you think is responsible for the executions of the two Russian special forces? And could it be Russian nationalist extremists? Or what do you think about the weak theory about the Russian intelligence? And how do you think this incident will affect the front line? Let me know in the comments, because you know that I read and I care a lot about all of your comments.